Hello, this is Jenny Luscombe, and this is Feeling is Healing, episode 26. And this is all about conflict and how to resolve it. And Andy just said conflict resolution, or is it conflict revolution? But it's both. It's both. So I think that from personal experience, this is adventuring into territories that we may never have been into before. And everything that's going on in the cosmos is pointing us in this direction because, like I said last week, all of our dysfunctional adaptations that we've had that have stopped us progressing are all falling away. And I heard a thing actually this morning. I was listening to an astrologer, and I pay attention to astrology, but I don't really know what I'm talking about, to be honest. I'm not an expert. But I did hear that today, exactly today, there's something quite significant going on with Mars in the cosmos. And Mars is very connected up with anger. So it's interesting how when I was thinking about this show, I always say that it kind of comes to me what to do. And then when I started to focus on conflict, I received very clear guidance that I needed to put my points that I've put together, my conflict hit list, that I needed to put it down in a shareable form and share it on the channel so that people could either save it to their phones, in saved messages, or keep hold of it somewhere so that you can refer to, because this really is kind of like the sum total of my life's work when it comes to relationships. And I know from studying the gene keys, which is absolutely mind-blowing because it is based on your own astrology and what you came into this life to learn. I know that mastering relationship is one of the main things that I'm here to do. So in my gene keys profile, it's telling me that relationships specifically, I have been attempting to transmute the shadow of struggle. And that is the most true thing ever. So according to the gene keys, when you transmute struggle, you move into perseverance. And then this journey of perseverance eventually leads you to honor. So I'm looking forward to that. I think on my current journey, I'm having quite a lot of revelations about relationships because I've had, in the last 6 months, 3 really big conflicts, very painful. 2 of them with a couple of friends separately, and another one with my daughter that I've mentioned before. So with my daughter, that's all happily resolved, and we've moved through it. We moved through it by a lot of these contemplations that I've shared on this hit list, actually. One of my friends, we're getting through it too. We're persevering and it's working. And we've moved into peace and mutual consideration. One of my friends that I fell out with big time over the last 6 months, I've had to walk away from. So yeah, this is really, really a difficult journey, especially with all of our little coping mechanisms and everything falling away, because they just don't work like they used to, and they never worked actually. But yeah, we thought they did, and we were having a game of pretend with ourselves. So I'll get started. As a result of like a million different things that happened to me with relationships, so with friends, with partners, I've come up with a resolution hit list to open up some doors of perception that you didn't know were there. So whittling it all down and simplifying it, if you're in a conflict, either with yourself or with another, it's more than likely that it is caused by misunderstanding and a lack of communication. So we have to go through the feelings, and we have to have a laser focused awareness on what others are feeling and why. And if we want them to understand us, which we do, If we want understanding from them, we have to get over ourselves and move into attempting to understand them, which is not easy. So conflict is supposed to be temporary, and all negative emotions are temporary. They're just the messengers, and they are the answer. So we mainly get caught up in emotion and drama, in egocentric kind of foot stamping, reminiscent of the terrible twos. And I was talking to a friend recently, and we were kind of a bit blown away by how awful it is that a natural phase of human child development is labeled as terrible. That's just an aside, but those 2-year-olds, like, being labeled terrible is terrible. But anyway, so we get really caught up in the emotion in conflict because we don't want to feel them, and we think we shouldn't have to, and we push them away, and we think that we're the only one suffering, and we egocentrically make it all about us in conflict instead of allowing a meeting of minds and allowing the other person to exist as they are as well, including in their righteous anger. So we can go into this with the wisdom that any conflict is actually mirroring internal conflict within us. And that, when we're caught up in the moment and we need to be right and all of that, that's what we forget. We forget that there's always a reflection. So whatever's going on in our external reality is always showing us something that's going on within us. And it's quite difficult to remember that. So I'm going to start straight away with the hit list. And number one is a question. Quite a few of these are a question. So the first one is, how am I in ego right now? And it's likely that you're thinking that you're the only one who has a right to feel something. So when we have like a PTSD reaction, we have a trauma trigger that comes from the depths of our soul. It feels so real, and we project onto the other person. And yeah, there is something going on in the room, but it is kind of like a news flash to take you back to something that has already happened. So sit with it. How am I in ego right now? So ego is always the kind of selfish part of you, where you can't see past yourself. And it makes sense. It just makes sense. And there isn't anything wrong with that. We all do it, and there's no judgment. But the other person also has a right to feel as strongly as you. So number two, how am I playing I win, you lose, I'm right, you're wrong? That is always happening in conflict situations. And win-win is always available. Now, this is not programming that we have been privy to. We didn't know that this was possible. It just doesn't kind of exist in our auras from all of the ways that we've been programmed. Win-win, we just don't normally go looking for, because we didn't know that it was possible. So just be open to a win-win. You don't have to know how to get there, but being open to it and looking for it and wondering about it is the perfect energy to be in when you are realizing that you're playing I win, you lose. And a friend said to me recently in a conflict, it's not all about you, Jenny. You know, it's not all about winning. And, you know, that was true. It wasn't all about me. But actually, I do think it's all about winning, but I think it's all about everyone winning. Win, win. So number one, how am I in ego right now? Number two, how am I playing I win, you lose, I'm right, you're wrong. So number 3 is all about deflection. So deflection is when you're trying to get somebody to hear you, to understand you, to hear what you're saying about them, what they're doing, and it doesn't land. It just doesn't land. It's like they're playing ping pong and they ping it straight back to you without it landing. So my marriage ended because of this. So just sit with that. How am I deflecting the other person? So deflection is actually always something that you or the other person will do because of shame, because of deep shame that you can't actually access. So just know that it's there and see that it's there, and it's okay to have it. But sitting with the why, why, if it's true that I have deep shame and that's why I'm deflecting or that's why they're deflecting, ask yourself where that could have come from. So shame is always a push away. So if you're shaming somebody else, you're pushing them away. If you're shaming yourself, you're pushing yourself away. So just notice that it's there. Now, this is one of the main reasons why relationships end, because if you can't get past deflection, there's not really anywhere you can go. So just see that you're pushing yourself away and they're pushing you away and you're pushing them away. So number 4, what if you and the other person are both right? Now, I've put right in inverted commas there. So what if you're both right from your own individual, unique and valid perspectives? What if they are as right as you about what they're perceiving? So we're not always perceiving the same things, and none of this seems completely obvious to start with. Yeah, it's such a tricky one. But if we all start to look at the other person, you kind of see this in the truther movement, you can't believe that people can't see what you can see, and you can't believe that they have the opinions that they have. You can't believe that they're missing what they're missing. But if we can project understanding, an intention to understand. So how is that person standing in those shoes of that age, married to that person, with those kids, in that job, in those circumstances? How could they be of that opinion? How could they be perceiving what they're perceiving? This will get you everywhere, because if you're projecting onto somebody else that you're right and they're wrong, there has to be a reflection. It's the law. So number 5, right, this is literally one of my most favorite things. As soon as you know that shoulds and shouldn'ts are just control mechanisms, you will hear yourself say it, and then you will question yourself, and questioning yourself is always miraculous. So identify the shoulds and shouldn'ts on both sides. So if you think about it, a should coming at you or a shouldn't coming at you is always somebody external to you trying to control your reality, trying to imply that you have to do something that they say. It's a bit of a do as you're told. I'm not very good at doing as I'm told. I don't know about any of you. But so identify the shoulds and shouldn'ts on both sides. So things like they shouldn't do that, or they shouldn't be like that, or I should receive respect, whatever it is. Shoulds and shouldn'ts, notice them. And particularly in this conflict, notice, what are you shoulding at them or shouldn'ting? And what are they shoulding at you or shouldn'ting at you? So just sit with that and contemplate, why would that be happening? So even if what they're doing to you feels hurtful and appalling and abusive, ask yourself this question: what if they can't see how cruel they're being to me? Because they are subconsciously playing out something extremely painful from their childhood. So this is, I think, 99% of the time what is happening. So attempt to see their inner child. And it may well be abusive, but we've all been abusive, and we'd be lying if we said that we hadn't. And it's mainly happening, anything abusive, because when something is subconscious, we have made it invisible to us because it was so difficult for us to deal with and we couldn't process it. So we've made it invisible to us. The other people all around us, everybody else in your external, they can see it, but you can't. So see their inner child. If you want them to see yours, you have to see them. So see the pain that they are trying to transmute. What they are doing to you was done to them. So just try to see it and understand it. So if they're trying to control you, for example, or they're insulting you, then this is what was done to them. And if that's happening in your reality and that's happening to you, this is also somewhere within you unresolved. So we want to be respected, and we want other people to see us. But if we want that, we have to move towards them, even if they don't have the capacity. So number 6, look at the reflection. So we've already been looking at the reflection, but what a lot of people don't know, and this is a bit of a life hack really, and probably most people who are listening to this already know this, but it's always good to have a bit of a reminder. So it won't necessarily be immediately obvious, because this is all about you surfacing subconscious information when you're delving into this. So how they're making you feel in this conflict is exactly the same as how you're making them feel. And you might not see it at first. So ask yourself the question: how is the other person in this conflict making me feel? And how could I be making them feel the exact same thing? So how is the other person in this conflict therefore allowed to be angry for the exact same reason that you are? So your inner child and their inner child, your inner children, are somehow matching. This, when you think about it, is cosmic perfection, and this is divine order. So this is cosmic perfection in action. If we'd been taught this when we were kids, oh my God, like, where would we be? So if you can see it, how you're making each other feel the exact same thing for the exact same reason, acknowledge it and begin to understand it. If you can do this, you will heal yourself and the other person profoundly. So number 7, we are learning to have ourselves and the other person too. So this is not, okay, they can exist, but I can't, or I can exist as myself, but they can't. You actually both can. So this is another reason why many people kind of split up in relationships or fall out with friends or have conflict with family is because we feel like we can only be ourselves if we're not around that person who is complaining, or we're not around that person who's trying to control us. We feel like we can only exist if we're by ourselves doing our own thing. Now, this is what we are all being called to rise above. This is about connection and freedom. So we're learning to exist in our own right without being shut down in some way or without shutting others down. So allowing them also to exist. So this involves a meeting of minds. And a lot of people believe in compromise. I'm afraid I just don't buy it. I think there's a higher evolved alternative to compromise. I think compromise is an agenda, actually. I think it keeps people in incompatible relationships, which limits people's lives massively. Because if you're compromising, you're kind of agreeing to pain for someone else. And that's because you're not looking for a win-win. So no one needs to be shut down. Like, if you're incompatible, then maybe you do need to exist as separate beings, separately from each other, and let each other go with love. But I believe more often than not, conflict can be resolved by kind of rising above all the drama. So, having said all of this, I'm not saying it's okay for people to abuse us. It just isn't. And that's why we're getting angry, and we need to get angry because anger shows us where our boundaries are. But seeing the why for another person is what can open the door to peace and understanding and unity. So if the other person in this conflict cannot do the same for you because they don't have the capacity, maybe they're not as awake as you are, it just can't be forced. But it may mean compatibility, it's possible, but processing time is needed. Time is one of the best healers, and sitting in contemplation with all of this is amazing for you. So even if they can't see your side, there's still a massive potential for miracles to unfold just in you rising above the drama and attempting to and intending to perceive truth in the other. And that truth in the other is not always obvious, but sometimes it will take you getting over yourself and inquiring for that truth to be revealed. Because as soon as truth is revealed on one side, it will be revealed on the other. That is also the law. So, number 8, this journey of conflict, and it is a journey, and it's actually a miraculous one. It's actually taking you from the shadow of doubt, self-doubt, and suspicion into the gift of inquiry, into the mastery of truth. So conflict is usually caused by misunderstanding and a lack of communication. So if you can combine an elevated perspective of inquiry with understanding and communication, you are literally surfing a tsunami of expansion all the way across the universe. Yes, please. So recently I was delving into a part of my consciousness, and I was actually looking at some internal conflict that I'd noticed my daughter had about some sports and stuff that she was doing. And I saw that that was mirrored in myself. And it was sort of, without going into loads of detail, it was kind of like a bit of a sense of entitlement, actually. It was like, I want to get it right. I want to just be seen and heard and sensed and honored and felt. And I just want to receive all of that. Why should I have to go to all this bother? Why, like, she was kind of like, I just want to be good at basketball. Why can't I just you know, without having to put all the work in. Like some of the other girls are like really natural at it. Why do I have to work at it? So I kind of like had something similar to that going on with me. And it sort of became a bit of a revelation. So I was like, oh, you know, I need to investigate this. So what I did was I did some emotion code on myself. So one of my therapies, I use muscle testing, and also you can use the body code with that to find out where in your body the trapped emotion is of that particular internal conflict. So when I was doing this, like it was absolutely massive. It was massive. And like when I released it, I felt completely different. And there was actually 40 emotions, 40. So the emotion code chart is constitutes 60 emotions. And it is kind of quite mind-blowing how many there are. Um, but I'm just gonna read out to you the emotions that I had trapped that were causing that pattern. And it kind of occurred to me that because this was an internal conflict with myself, and it was kind of connected to my relationship with myself in terms of commitment, in terms of committing to myself, because I wasn't committed to. That was part of my trauma. So if I wasn't committed to, how can I commit to myself? So the 40 emotions, it just like rang really true. And it struck me, you know, when I was thinking about the conflicts that I've had over the last 6 months and over the last few years. It just really is so true. So in any conflict and any internal conflict, there's always abandonment, betrayal, forlorn, lost, love unreceived, effort unreceived, heartache, insecurity, vulnerability, overjoy. So overjoyed doesn't sound like a trapped emotion, but it's actually when your joy is being crushed by somebody else or yourself. Also anxiety, despair, disgust, nervousness, worry, failure, helplessness and hopelessness, lack of control, low self-esteem, crying, which is a trapped emotion. You know, that feeling you get in your throat when you need to cry, you want to cry, but because of who's around you, you can't cry, and then you kind of swallow it down and it really hurts. That's a trapped emotion. Rejection and discouragement, sadness, sorrow, confusion, defensiveness, grief, stubbornness, self-abuse, anger, bitterness, guilt, hatred, resentment, depression, frustration, indecisiveness, panic, and taken for granted. What a boatload of pain. So if you really take this hit list into your soul, you can release that boatload all at once. Because, you know, obviously I bang on about self-healing. That's my thing. But there is nothing more healing than acting it out in the world. Like if you can go into territories you've never been to before in relationships, and you can be the one that reaches out to the other, it's absolutely mind-blowing how much emotion you can release and how much your life can change. So I've got down as number 9 that it's become necessary now with the cosmos and everything, everything changing and letting go of all our, you know, maladaptive patterns. We actually do now need to normalize that we all have an egocentric, selfish, narcissist part of consciousness within us. And none of us want to see that. But it is just nature, and it is a part of us that will rise when we are in fear, and it's a survival mechanism. There's nothing we can do about it. Like, we can't release all the fear that we have in our system because we need it. Like, we need all of the emotions because they show us who we are, and they are our guidance system. So it just is. We just do. We are all narcissistic in some way, and it is a spectrum. But there is a part of us that is always going to be selfish when we're afraid. So we need to normalize that and to see that that's what we're doing when we're in conflict. So we are all that, and we are the dark and the light, and it's all source consciousness. So I thought I'd finish like the last one. It just kept going round in my head. I was thinking, why am I thinking of stop, look, and listen? So I think I was receiving a message from the universe. Like, I remember being at primary school and being taught the highway code and how to get to the other side of the road safely and all of that. You have to stop, you have to look, you have to listen. And I just thought, well, in relationship, you're trying to get to the other side. You're trying to get to some kind of meeting of minds, some kind of peace, some kind of harmony. And it's just a really easy phrase to remember, and maybe we could use it as a mantra. Okay, I'm in a conflict. I need to stop, and I need to look, and I need to listen. So we need to do that, I think, firstly with ourselves, and then also with the other person. But we have to look and listen in ways that we've never done before, because we're being given a huge opportunity to transmute this pain now. And I think this is something that we're all working on. So that's all of my points for the conflict resolution hit list. And to be honest, love is the only thing that wins the game. I mean, let's face it, it isn't about you winning and another person losing, or vice versa. It's about all of us winning, win-win. And it's just the new story to replace the old story. So I hope that's helped everybody. So I've posted on my Feeling is Healing Telegram channel and Holistic Radio channel. I've posted the hit list so that you can save it and refer to it at a later date if you should need to, or share it with somebody else if you think they might need it. But thank you everybody for listening, and I really hope it helps. And the main reason that I'm sharing is because I've had so much struggle with relationships. I would love to be able to help other people resolve their conflicts. And ultimately, I want to live in a world where we're in unity consciousness and not in separation. So good luck with that, everyone. And please let me know if it's helped. I love getting the miraculous news flashes from people. So before I finish, I think I'm going to try to be a bit more organized when I do the shows, and I'm going to try and decide a week in advance what I'm going to do the following week. And for some reason this week, it just came to me like a flash. Like, I've been thinking about talking about this for ages and I keep forgetting, but I want to focus on the feminine and the masculine. So some people will call this the divine feminine or the divine masculine. So this is basically about who women are supposed to be and who men are supposed to be in the natural order of things, and who we're supposed to be to each other. But yeah, I find it all really interesting, and I've found some information that has really helped me understand that. And also it really strikes me, like when we're in trauma situations, like using myself as an example, in a recent conflict, sort of tuning into some information, I kind of saw myself and I was shocked. And I realized that, even as a female person, like when I'm in my narcissistic part of consciousness and I'm in the fear, then I am actually exhibiting very male characteristics, like, but shadow male, not divine masculine, shadow male, kind of like aggression, you know, things like that. But yeah, I find that really interesting. So I think I'm going to cover that next week. So I look forward to sharing that with you. Yeah, I'm just looking at the time. I finished quite early, Andy. But anyway, that's brilliant because there's a few people here. So if anybody wants to ask any questions or come on and share anything, you don't have to. But if you would like to, you're very welcome.
Say thank you, Jenny, for the show so far. Yes, we have got a couple of 2 or 3 listeners. Yes, please, if you feel like you want to just jump on and say hello, feel free to do so. Otherwise, if you want to wind me up, posted. There's quite a lot of information there, so there's quite a lot to chew over for people to watch and to absorb.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I'd make it shareable because I've needed so much help, you know, like I've said to you before, the show is always for me. It's always for me, but you know, obviously in my learning I can help others. But it just came to me sort of, it was an intuition. And when I saw that all the astrology is something's happening with Mars, like everybody's anger buttons are being pushed.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the eclipse with the moon.
Right.
The wolf moon.
Oh, okay.
Was eclipsing Mars. So that was not yesterday, or was it the day before?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it was literally, it was transitioning where the moon passed in front of Mars and completely. I think the prime location to see that event was in North America.
Yeah.
But it was still visible. But we've still got the parade of planets as well.
Right.
That will be lasting for several days, if not weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard about that. It's really unusual, isn't it, for them all to be in line together?
Yeah, there's 7 altogether, I think it is.
Yeah, it just.
I shared a post from the Farmer's Almanac the other day regarding the parade of planets. But yeah, there's I have a little app that shows it, and you can see them all lining up in the sky. It looks cool.
Yeah, I might go outside and have a look. So is that today? Did you say?
The parade of planets is going on for several weeks.
Several weeks. Okay.
There's literally, I've noticed that without realising the parade of planets was a thing, last week I noticed there was an extreme, I've never noticed that one before. And then there's another one by the moon as it was rising and passing over. There's another bright star, which I think that must have been Mars. But yeah, no, it's good. Obviously, living up here in the valleys, we get a lot of clouds, so it's not very often we get clear skies, so we can observe these things. So if you look at, you might just see some.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I used to have like a star map thing on my phone. I might upload it again actually because it was brilliant.
But I ask you something? Hi, it's Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? I wanted to ask you, Jenny, about something about conflict resolution. For instance, when we don't know who we're in conflict against.
That's
your example. Because when we don't know, or might suspect, but we don't have enough evidence to bring these, bring the people responsible to justice. How do we move forward into the golden age of mankind when there's still this treachery and darkness lingering everywhere?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It really is, because there's so much of that everywhere you look at the moment. And there's some stuff actually that I have in my past that is reminiscent of exactly that. You know, things that happened to me that I've had no resolution from. And I don't even know whether I will go looking for that, but I have wondered about it. And it's kind of, I just think that when something is personally out of your control in the present moment, then all you can do is kind of have faith that justice will come, and that it already is. And maybe to go there, to go there in your head, but to see how possibly that came about. So, when you kind of look out into the world and you see all this kind of, narcissism on a massive scale coming from governments, coming from, religion, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Um, it's a difficult one. I think you always just have to go within and ask yourself, this lack of resolution, like these feelings that I'm feeling, these emotions, these sensations in my body that are happening as a result of this external conflict. I think.
Thank you. I noticed fear can hold us back from conflict resolution as well, either on a small scale between friends and new girlfriend, boyfriend, husband or wife, or even the difference in the ascension of the husband and wife during these times where there's a lot of conflict because the wife might be aware of more things than the husband, and he's calling her crazy, and and he's watching ABC and she's watching us.
Yeah.
So that kind of conflict is after maybe 35, 40 years, where the husband is saying, "What happened to you? Where are you coming from, girl?"
Yeah.
But it's just the fact that the spouse has grown, where she's more aware of truth that she wasn't aware of before.
Yeah, and I mean that actually happened to me. I was in a very long-term relationship for 24 years actually, so most of my life. And I became spiritual and sort of got on the path and attempted to help my partner also do the same. But if one person is growing and the other person is quite happy where they are, it's possible that even though you were compatible before awakening, with that person, that when you start to grow and they don't, and they're just happy to stay where they are, that you do become incompatible. And it's just life, and all of this kind of together forever stuff, it's all very Disney, and I think it's part of the agenda as well. Like maybe we weren't supposed to live happily ever after with the same person. Maybe we were supposed to just move on, when we're growing, and find someone else who wants to grow with us in the way that we want to grow at that particular time. But yeah, it's definitely true what you said about fear. It does stop resolution because it just makes us very short-sighted. And when we're in fear, it's a survival mechanism. So when we're in fear, we want to save ourselves. And so we kind of make ourselves the only one in the room. And it really does, it's like having blinkers on. It's like being blindfolded because you're just fighting for yourself instead of the other person. I mean, in conflict, if we could be focusing on the both of us, then we might get somewhere. But as a result of all the childhood trauma and everything that we're all carrying, it's not always easy to do. But I think contemplation is one of the most useful forms of healing in any situation. Yeah, I hope that's helped, Kevin.
Yes, thank you. It all helps. It all helps. I learned from. I think wisdom comes from a multitude of teachers, right? So
yeah, totally. Thank you. Anybody else want to have a word?
I'm just if no one else wants to jump in, if you've got a few final words, Jenny, we can stop the recording and then we can have a bit of an after show chat if people are a bit shy about talking recording.
Yeah. It always reminds me of school, asking people if they want to come on and say anything, because that kind of like just really reminds me, because I was one of the quiet girls sitting at the back, and I always knew the answer and had things to contribute, but didn't always participate. So I kind of find it, I don't want to put people on the spot. But yeah, so I'll finish there, but I really, really hope that helps. Please let me know if it has helped. And I do occasionally get messages from people who are putting into practice all this stuff, and I want to live in a world where we're all working on ourselves and we're all taking responsibility for ourselves, because that's where the freedom is, I think. But thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next week. Lots of love.
Thank you, Jenny. I joined your channel and chat, so I'll see you over there sometime.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
Really?